This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on. Welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary coming to you. Carson from the Golf Company Eagle Point Studios here on this Wednesday, Hump Day. What an exciting day, man. John Feinstein is going to join us today, author of many books that I'm sure you're aware of. You may have heard of one called A Season on the Brink. But 36 books, Todd. He's got 36 stinking books.
And if you asked most of the people in Indiana, they'd probably tell you he has one.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because it's the one they know of and remember. And
he's one of the most highly decorated writers. Maybe he may be the most prolific sports writer.
Fell out of my chair.
Of ever. He got bucked off. Of ever. I mean, he's the On the Brink book was a smash, but he's got a. It would take you. I'm thinking about the research for those books because you know what kind of research, and I'll talk to him about this, but the research that goes into something like that, and that times 36. That's somebody's lifetime. And he's still going, but
yeah. Well, he's 100 years old. I mean, he's had a lot of time to research that.
I don't tell him that.
I'm just kidding. But obviously, I mean, there are very few. I was trying to think of it yesterday when I was looking at some of the books and some of that stuff, and there are certain people, and a lot of times it's not with sports books, but when there's a book and the author's name is associated with the book. And I think this is one of those books, especially in the state of Indiana. You can ask almost anyone our age who wrote Season on the Brink, and they all know John Feinstein. Like, they all know him because of the book. And that's probably, one of the things I'm interested to ask him is, like, what book did he enjoy writing the most, or what's he think he's most known for? Obviously, in the state of Indiana, our answer to that's going to be Season on the Brink. I just wonder if he's not from Indiana. He has no real tie to Indiana that I can see.
None. Well, he's a New York guy. It was just he came in and wrote the book. And, yeah, I had never heard of him before then, obviously. No. But that's because I was a 20-year-old kid who didn't give a crap about expanding my world horizons at the time, I think. But he was known in his circle. I mean, he's a well-known sports writer before that, but not nationally well-known. Boy, this was a number one smash hit, but the thing, his body of work is crazy good. I mean, and it covers so many different aspects of sports. It's a wow, what a library of work. I mean, you talk about something to do during quarantine, if you start reading his stuff, that should take you through even the next wave maybe. So plenty there.
Yeah. I mean, this is not going to help his career any, I can assure you. But I've read more of his books than any other singular author that there is. So
is that more than one book?
It is because they're sports books. Because they're sports books, especially. I mean, he's got an affinity. He likes golf for some reason. I mean, obviously, you can tell by a lot of the books that he's done. There's several of them. So, I enjoy golf. So I've read almost all of his golf stuff, and he's just a household name in the state of Indiana, which is
A Good Walk Spoiled, his other number one book, of course, in regards to PGA Tour guys. I have not read that book. What was that book like?
It was kind of a year spent on the tour, and it's kind of 17 or 15 different storylines kind of throughout the year. So they would go to an event, and at a certain event, he would kind of highlight a certain player and what that week was like for that particular player. And, I remember specifically one of them was about the Ryder Cup and Davis Love. And, it's just an interesting, if you enjoy sports, especially that particular sport. I mean, if he'd have written it about NASCAR, I don't know that I would have read it, but I'm, in this situation, like you're talking about, when you're quarantined and doing stuff like this, I mean, it's he does a great job of having you visualize what he's writing about.
Absolutely. It's funny. That's exactly what I was thinking. And I'm going to tell him this. But the greatest compliment, I think, he's got 36 books and they span, the time. We're talking a time span of, well, it's probably beyond the time that they were even written in 40 years, because some of them were probably written about stuff way back. I don't know all 36 books, but the time span is unbelievable. But you can read his books, and for me, and it will take you to a place in your life. I can read 2 different of his books that were written 20 years apart and go back to the same time. On the Brink, written in 85, and then A Good Walk, or no, the Where Nobody Knows Your Name, the book about minor league baseball, written in 2014. But both of those take me back to my 20-year-old self because of the obvious reasons of On the Brink is when I read it. But the minor league baseball, that just takes me back to Louisville had a AAA team with the Cardinals then, and they were bad. I mean, they were awesome, good. Andy Van Slyke and all those guys that played for the Cardinals played in Louisville, but it was that tip. It was a minor league town, but that book takes you back to those memories. It connects you to your life, and you're right. It makes it vivid for you, and it's amazing. But that's the mark of a great writer.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, and you're exactly right. I mean, he's been fortunate. I think he'll even probably say, I've seen interviews with him before and seen him talk about these, and he's been fortunate in that he's had the opportunity to do some of these things. And I mean, the situation, I don't want to talk too much about it because I kind of want to ask him about it, but the situation of getting to basically shadow the IU team for a whole year. I mean, there's a lot of writers that would love to write that book and have that opportunity. And, he's been very fortunate, but he's, once he started writing, I mean, he's earned that right because he's very talented at it for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that that's catapulted him, but I think that as we look at his body of work, there was no way of holding this dude down. This stuff was coming. Greatness was coming in one form or another, whether however it was or not. But looking forward to it, man. It's awesome. But Louisville, we talked about this yesterday. They received a notice of allegations from the NCAA, and tons of chatter out there about what do they deserve because they have cleared house. All the coaches are gone. The athletic director is gone. The athletic director's family is gone. They fired his whole family. The president of the university is gone. His replacement is gone. So they have completely wiped out everything that was there. That's cool and all, but in my opinion, you still have to get punished because that's only part. Everybody does that most of the time, but there has to be a punishment. This is not normal allegations here. These are major allegations while on probation for major allegations. So you cannot go lightly. I'm not saying they get the death penalty or anything like that, but you have to do something here or it's done. It's over for the NCAA to me, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I can go both ways on it. But one, I don't think we're ever going to know, how detailed they are about it now. But if they put a process in place about, how they would monitor themselves and report things now and how they would improve on every single, possible thing that could go on. I mean, here's the thing, like almost every school, even, every school reports minor violations and things they didn't even realize they were doing wrong. And some of these things are so nitpicky. If you knew what they were, you'd be like, how's that even a violation? But I mean, they report themselves. A lot of schools across the country, if not every school across the country does that. But I mean, obviously we're talking about different kinds of allegations with this program and what they've done. But I mean, I don't know. If I was a Louisville fan, would I feel differently about it because they have cleaned house? I mean, I
promise you, as a fan, it will cloud the fans' feelings. There's no doubt because you automatically see things in a way that we don't realize we see. We're kind of slanted automatically.
But if I can't think of another situation where you've had something like this happen. It'd be like Kansas right now saying, hey, look, you know what? We know what we did was wrong. We're willing to correct it. And in doing so, we're going to fire Bill Self. The athletic director's gone and the president's gone, which is effectively what Louisville's done. And if that were the case, you would say, okay, yeah, they want to make sure everything is done right from here on out. And they're taking the steps to do that. I mean, Kansas has not done that. Louisville did. So I don't have any reason to root for Louisville, but I'm going to tell you what they've kind of done in getting rid of when they fired. They're the only school when those allegations that came out against all those different schools, Kansas being one of them and LSU and all that, they're the only ones that fired their coach. And I mean, I do give them some credit for that.
Oh, they absolutely.
They fired a Hall of Fame coach that
just won a national championship for him.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I just view it differently because they have totally cleaned house on it.
It's a tough deal. It's a unique deal. That's the thing.
Here's the tough part from their perspective, in my opinion, is you broke the rule while you were on probation for breaking the rule. Now you can't even sneeze inappropriately. Like there's nothing they can do from here on out.
One of the things I saw, Eric Crawford's a great writer down in Louisville. He's at WDRB.com, formerly of the Courier Journal. But he, in a piece yesterday I was reading, he covers Louisville, suggested he covered all this, and he acknowledged all the things we've talked about, that it's basically it's a tough deal. His suggestion was, all right, the NCAA should put them on a 3 or 4, an extended, because they're already on probation still, but extend that probation, but make it to where it's like a 2-year ban. You commit a violation, bam, 2-year ban or something, but have that hanging over your head. I mean, that's a possibility. But then you've got people like Kansas and Arizona who we know the letters are coming to those guys next. If they don't do something to Louisville, they're going to be screaming, these guys were on probation. You didn't do anything to them. How the heck are you going to do something to us? Yada, yada. So it's a Pandora's box.
It is. And truly, I don't know if this, the pandemic situation is going to work out in their benefit or against them. I don't really know. I mean, look, it's not being a rocket scientist to figure out, money is going to be an issue when it comes to the sports world, when everything gets started back up, and they're going to need ratings to be as high as possible. And they're going to need, all the good teams to be playing and be a part of the NCAA tournament and everything involved. Do you factor that into it? I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying it's a possibility that all of these schools, I mean, what is the NCAA tournament the same if you don't have an LSU and Arizona and a Louisville and Kansas and those schools involved in it? I just Arizona. Don't know if it. Yeah, I don't know if it might work to their benefit or if it may not. I don't know, and I'm not saying it should. Just money's going to be money talks. We all know that, and
they're sitting in there wringing their hands right now, saying, "What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" Because they have that. Hey, I want to make sure we hit the break on time. We've got John Feinstein joining us today, author of many, many, many great books. Of course, this season on the brink, #1 New York bestseller, in addition to A Good Walk Spoiled. Looking forward to having him on, man. I can't wait to ask him if he's ever been interviewed by a former IU basketball player. This is going to be great.
I'm sure he has.
Looking forward to it. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Corey Leary coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hey, make sure you hit up our good friends at Golf Club at Eagle Point Pub. If you need anything, they got takeout. We're getting ready to get closer and closer to these restaurants opening, but until we do, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Hit up your dentist. Our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry, and Ryan Shaddy if you're looking for a house. But we appreciate it. Lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. We're back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
To satisfy your soul.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals here on this Wednesday, and could not be any more excited now to be joined by probably the most well-renowned sports writer of our time, John Feinstein. John, how are you, sir?
Jim, Todd, I'm fine, dealing with what we're all dealing with, and just hoping that the end is somewhere at the end of this long tunnel, and that the light, whatever light we see, turns out to be the end of the tunnel and not a train.
Yeah, especially you're up in New York, man. You're in the hot spot of this. I mean, what's it like living in that situation? It's got to be just mind-boggling all the time.
Yeah, you know what? It's eerie, Jim. We don't go out much, my family and I. But when we do, I went to the grocery store the other day to get some stuff, and you have to wear a mask to get inside the grocery store. And the weirdest part of it isn't so much that everybody's wearing a mask, it's that nobody will look at one another. It's a little bit like being in a Star Trek episode. And it's just an eerie time. I said to someone earlier this morning, my biggest challenge every day is waking up in the morning and figuring out what day it is. Because every day is pretty much the same around here. I've got plenty of work to do. I'm not bored or anything like that, but it's an eerie time, I think, in all our lives.
I see a new Feinstein book coming out of this.
Along those same lines, I mean, I understand what you mean, because I was at the grocery store, and when I would pass people, like I would say, excuse me or whatever it was, and I was like, man, I wonder if they don't even want me to say excuse me because they don't want me to breathe extra or
right.
Get anything. It's just funny, like exactly what you're talking about. Like people won't, they like turn away from you, and everybody's turning their shoulders when they pass each other. It's, it is strange, and it's just, I don't even know how we come out of this. It's crazy.
Well, it's going to take a while, and I keep hearing people saying, well, we've got to get the economy going, and of course we'd love to get the economy going, and those of us who love sports and work in sports would love to see sports start again. But the thing we all have to understand is if we try to come back too soon, we're going to plunge ourselves back into another pandemic like the one that's going on now, and that's the last thing in the world anybody wants.
Absolutely. John Feinstein is known for so many books. There's more books. I didn't realize, I'll be honest with you, the depth of how many books you had. So I started getting into it, and because I'd read several of them. Todd's read more. What was your famous quote a minute ago, Todd? I love this.
Which one?
Todd Leary about
I got a lot of famous quotes.
Well, I mean the books. How many you've read more books of whose?
Yeah. So this is not any special anything for you, John, but because I'm not a very smart human being, but I have read more of your books than any person in the world, primarily because my life's revolved around sports and obviously, with basketball and the Coach Knight book and that stuff, but the golf books and I've been an avid golf fan ever since I graduated from college. So all of the stuff on golf and everything. And it's just, it's funny. We were talking about it earlier in the week about you being on here, and I think you're the most famous household name in the state of Indiana that really doesn't have anything to do with the state of Indiana. You weren't part of any of the universities.
I appreciate that, Todd, and I understand what you're saying because obviously I lived in Indiana for 6 months and was basically in the bubble that you lived in when you played at Indiana every day. But when I travel to Indiana, which of course I've done many times through the years, it's interesting that how many people do recognize me, and that almost all of them are very kind to me. That they liked Season on the Brink. They thought Season on the Brink allowed people who didn't understand what Bob Knight did as a coach to understand it, to understand there was a method to the madness.
Sure.
You'd be amazed the letters that I got and still get from Kentucky fans who say, well, I will never like Bob Knight, but I respect him now, having read your book. And I will say that my brother, who is an avid golfer like you, Todd, and a very good golfer, years ago played in a Pro-Am event out there in Indianapolis, and one of the guys he was playing with turned to him and said, I bought your brother's book. I used it for firewood. And my brother said, listen, build a bonfire if you want, as long as you buy the book. That's fine.
Yeah, use the books. Right.
Yeah. But most people in Indiana, I think, especially because people in Indiana understood Bob Knight better than 99% of the rest of the world. And so I don't think any of them were shocked. Wow, Bob Knight uses profanity. No kidding. But I think they found because of the access that Bob gave me, they found the anecdotal storytelling that I was able to do fascinating, because I was an outsider who was on the inside for that season.
And truly, I think that there's almost two groups of people in the state of Indiana, and I'll use IU fans as the example, is if you haven't read the book, and I've said this over the years, this has nothing to do with interviewing you. If you haven't read the book, it's almost like you don't have the inside information and know what things are really like. That's how important that book is to IU fans and people. Anyone that argues something about Bob Knight, they would be like, well, did you read this in Season on the Brink? And they're like, well, no. And they're like, well, read the book and then get back to me. It's like, if you haven't done your research yet, so you don't know, you can't have this conversation.
Yeah, and sometimes I wrote a column in the Washington Post when Bob went back to Assembly Hall this February, and I know you were there, Todd. The column I thought was very balanced. I said, look, you can't excuse some of the things that he's done. He is a bully, and there have been times when he's turned on friends, whether it was Mike Krzyzewski or Steve Alford or Jim Cruz or people like that. But you have to acknowledge, A, that he was a great coach. I mean, anybody who says that he wasn't doesn't know anything about basketball. And B, that he touched a lot of lives in a very positive way. And guys like Todd, who played for him, I know that while you were there, you every day was hell, because that's what it's like to play for Bob Knight. But I also know, without knowing you, that you look back on that experience and said it helped shape your life. And almost every guy I've ever talked to who played for Knight for 4 years or 5 years will say that same thing. You wouldn't believe the vitriol in some of the comments made about the column. How can you defend this guy who did this? How can you, and my answer was, my general answer was, I know you never read the book. Because if you'd read the book, you'd understand why I wrote what I did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just amazing. Have you ever been interviewed by a former IU basketball player?
Joe Hillman.
Oh, dang.
Joe Hillman, when he was working in Indy.
Years
ago, Joe was on a radio show. I know he also did television. But so Joe would be the one who comes to mind right away. I mean, I've obviously still talk to some of the guys I dealt with when I did the book. But I think Joe's the only one who ever actually interviewed me.
One of the questions I had, and this will just show you that I'm not that smart of an individual, but I do love your work, and I enjoy all the golf stuff, especially. But a season on the brink, just from a novice who has absolutely no clue, do you do all the research and write the book and then try to figure out what the title is going to be, or do you kind of have a title going into it and you're figuring out how to fit that narrative?
I almost never have a title going into a book, Todd. Sometimes you have a working title, for the sake of the publisher, because publishers aren't very bright and they need things like that. But I never start to write until I'm done with my research. And the reason for that is simple. I don't feel as if I can write the beginning until I know the ending. So with Season on the Brink, with every book I've ever done, I finish my research. Now, I may have to, I always say to people at the end of an interview, hey, if I forgot something, can I call you back? Because that does happen. So while I'm writing, I might go, geez, I forgot to ask that, and I might call somebody. But 99% of the research is done when I start to write. As far as titles are concerned, it's totally random how I get my titles. The title for Season on the Brink came from a day in Minneapolis. The team had lost the night before at Iowa badly. I mean, the game was over by the second TV timeout. And naturally, Bob was furious. We almost crashed taking off from Iowa City. The plane did a 360 on the runway. And it's kind of funny because we're going down the runway and Bob is railing about the fact that we'll never be any good until we get rid of Alford, as he called him. Not Alford, Alford. And, he can't guard anybody and he's a terrible leader. And the plane does this 360 and there's dead silence. And the pilot comes on and says, well, folks, runway's a little bit slick. We're fine, though. We'll go back, try it again. And nobody's talking at that moment because we're all scared to death. And the plane takes off, and we're fine. And Knight picks up in mid-sentence and goes, and I'll tell you another thing about Alfred. So the next morning, we're in Minneapolis. We've been up to like 3, 4 in the morning watching tape, of course. And walking out of breakfast, a Minneapolis columnist named Sid Hartman, who was a friend of Knight's, you probably encountered him while you were playing there,
for sure.
Todd,
yeah, for sure.
Has come in, and, of course, Bob's not talking to anybody. And Sid figures out that his best target to get a response is probably me. And he says, so, what are you going to do all day here in the snow in Minneapolis? And I said, Bob was a few steps ahead of us. I said, well, I'm going to do what I do every day, Sid. I'm just going to follow Knight around. And as we learned in the incident that led to Bob being fired, he doesn't take well to being referred to as Knight. Right. Even though I was not speaking to him. I was speaking to Sid. And Bob whirled on me and came back and said, you don't ever call me Knight. How dare, who do you think you are? You're 28 years old. You don't call me that. You call me Coach. You call me Bob. You do not call me Knight. And I just looked at him. I said, I'll see you at practice. Because I knew getting into an argument with him in front of the coaches was a lost cause. So I went for a walk in the snow. And as I was walking around, I said to myself, every day we're on the brink of some disaster. Every day. And I thought, uh-oh, that's the title. Season on the Brink.
Yep.
And Good Walk Spoiled, my first golf book, the title comes from Mark Twain, who once said golf is a good walk spoiled. I figured, why not steal from the best?
There you go. Yeah, I guess that's better than a walk in the snow, right? All season on the brink. Better than a walk in the snow.
I hope so. It seemed to be.
It's funny, just that description of everything. It just you're right. Like it is. It's hard to describe to people because it almost sounds like you are not as a former player and someone who feels so fortunate to have had that opportunity. It almost feels like you are not appreciative of the opportunity when you say like every day for 5 years is miserable and terrible. and
Yeah.
I mean that in the best way possible, but it just really is. It's not just fun for 5 years. And so I get what you're saying. And I also, I mean, we had more than one of those scary moments on the plane. I swear when we lost to Purdue one year, he tried to bring the plane down. We were midair.
I believe it.
He was ramming himself against the side of the plane, trying to flip the thing over. I'm telling you, and that's no joke.
No, and none of those are jokes. And you know, there's a story that I was told that I'm going to block on the name of the player. It was not a guy who was with the team when I was there. But Knight had gotten so mad at him in practice. They were getting ready to go play at Michigan, that he said, "You're not playing tomorrow. You're just not playing. I can't play you." You know, that was one of his phrases. "I can't play you." And they go up and they lose at Michigan, and he gets on the plane, and there's McDonald's on the runway that the managers have brought to eat on the plane going back. And so he's sitting in the back of the plane. He says, "Oh, the only good thing about this is he can't yell at me because I didn't play today." And so, of course, Knight gets on the plane, takes all the McDonald's, throws them on the runway, so nobody's going to eat, and goes straight back to him and starts screaming in his face, "If we could play you, we wouldn't lose a game like this, but we can't play you." And the whole tirade was directed at him, even though he hadn't played a minute.
Yeah.
That's Bob.
Very familiar with that.
We could talk all day long simply about that book, but your body of work is crazy. But you have a new book out, The Back Roads to March. Again, another great story of college basketball, but this is from a different angle. The unknown, the unheralded of college basketball, it says. But these are the guys that truly make the story that we love so much, which is March Madness.
Yeah, you know, Jim, when I was a young reporter at the Post, I was actually the night police reporter, but I moonlighted in sports, and I covered the college hoops teams in Washington that none of the big time guys wanted to cover. I became friends with Gary Williams because he was the coach at American at the time, and I went and covered his team, George Washington, Howard, Navy, and I loved it because people were actually glad to see you when you walked in, whether it was practice or a game or going in the locker room to talk to the players. It was to me, there was an intimacy to the reporting that allowed me to write well about these guys. And I've gone back to that frequently throughout my career because I'm a believer, again, having been a police reporter, that you don't have to be rich and famous to have a story to tell. You don't have to be Bob Knight. You don't have to be Mike Krzyzewski or Tiger Woods or any other famous person in sports you might care to name. And I've covered many of them through the years. But I wrote a book on the Army-Navy football rivalry years ago. None of those guys played in the NFL, but they had great stories to tell. I wrote a book about Patriot League basketball 20 years ago. Again, guys had great stories to tell. And this was a chance for me to go back to that kind of reporting, to go cover mid-major players, coaches, teams who aren't on ESPN, Dick Vitale never once called any of these guys a diaper dandy. They're not going to be mentioned in the NBA lottery. One of the kids I interviewed, one kid was drafted in the second round coming out of college. He played at Hofstra. He was the second leading scorer in the country. And I wrote about guys who I think had stories to tell. And I think the book in many ways was symbolized by a kid named Bjorn Broman, who played at Winthrop. And I was at the Big South tournament. Winthrop is losing in the first round, and they're getting beat pretty badly by Charleston Southern. And I'm watching this kid who I'd never seen play. I'd never heard of before that day. And he's diving all over the court. He's still making backdoor cuts to get layups. He hits a bunch of threes. He scored the last basket of the game, which gave him exactly 1,000 points in his college career. Exactly 1,000 points. And it was his last game because they lost. And I went to talk to him afterwards and I said to him, "You guys are losing by 20. You know, you're still out there giving everything you've got." And he said, "Look, I've played basketball all my life. Basketball is my first love and will always be my first love. But I'm done. I know I'm not going to play at the next level. I know this was my last game, and I didn't want to stop playing until the buzzer sounded." And people sometimes think because you have more talent, you care more. You know, you don't. This Jordan documentary, which is all about how competitive Jordan was. Well, we all knew that, for goodness sake. But I'm telling you, I wrote about kids who were every bit as competitive as Jordan, cared every bit as much about playing basketball as all the guys in the NBA did, and just weren't as talented, but still had stories to tell. And for me, the book was a complete joyride.
It's amazing. Those books, your books specifically, and I told this to Todd when we were off there earlier, they take, at least for me, they take me to a place in my memories and they make them very, very vivid. And it doesn't matter when, ironically, the book Season on the Brink, which was in 85, and Where Nobody Knows Your Name in 2014, they take me to the same place because Season on the Brink, I was a 20-year-old kid when I read it, and Where Nobody Knows Your Name, it's a minor league baseball. That takes me to Louisville and the AAA team for the Cardinals and A. Ray Smith, and it was true minor league baseball, but it was fun, but it's just memories. It's just great memories, and it takes me to the same place, and it's a great escape. I mean, good books are amazing, and that's why people read them, obviously. But
I'm being reminded of that right now because I've been able to catch up on a lot of reading these last 7-8 weeks, and I've enjoyed that aspect of this. You're right, Jim. And what I always say is when somebody finishes one of my books or a column or whatever, I want them to say, "I didn't know that." That's my goal. It can be, "I didn't know that about what it's like to play for Bob Knight." It can be, "I didn't know that about life on the PGA Tour." Or it can be, "I didn't know that about Bjorn Broman or Chris Clemens, who played at Campbell and nobody recruited him because he was 5'9", and he graduated a year ago from Campbell as the third all-time leading scorer in the history of the NCAA. And most college basketball fans never heard of him." I love having someone come up to me or someone write to me and say, "I didn't know that." That's my goal as a reporter because I've been given extraordinary access through the years. And in fact, I've always said if I ever sit down and write a memoir, the title might be Authorized Personnel Only because I've spent so much time being allowed to go to those places. And if I get that opportunity, I feel like I have almost an obligation to the reader to take them with me.
If you were, let's say, if you were doing a speaking event in the state of Indiana, the introduction for you would include the title of the book and author of A Season on the Brink and that stuff. Outside of the state of Indiana, would it be the same nationally? If you were being introduced in Texas somewhere, would you be introduced?
It's a great question because I have spoken in the state of Indiana on a number of occasions, and you're 100% right. Season on the Brink comes up first. Usually in other places, the introduction says the author of the 2 best-selling sports books of all time, which is great to hear. A good one, Season on the Brink. But it also depends on the audience. If it's a golf audience, the focus might be more on the golf books. If it's a basketball audience, certainly Season on the Brink comes up right away. And what I've always said about Season on the Brink is this. I don't think it's my best book because it was my first book, and I was still learning how to be an author. Now, I had the extraordinary access that Bob gave me that allowed me to write the book the way I did, and I think the best thing I did, the smartest thing I did, was just sort of get out of the way and let the story tell itself. I hope I'm better now than I was in 1986, but without any question, Season on the Brink was the most important book I wrote for me because its success has allowed me to go on and pick and choose my topics for future books. It's why I was able to write Where Nobody Knows Your Name. It's why I was able to write a Civil War about the Army-Navy rivalry. It's why I was able to write The Back Roads to March, because the success Season on the Brink had, and by the way, 5 publishers rejected my proposal and turned it down. And I was paid $17,500 as an advance for the book. And had to take a pay cut to take a leave of absence from the Washington Post, which I wouldn't have regretted even if the book didn't sell well. But Season on the Brink put me into I'll tell you this quickly. Bob didn't speak to me for 8 years, as people I think know, after the book came out. And the first time we spoke was in Hawaii in 1994. Indiana was playing out there. I was out there with Maryland. I was walking through the hotel lobby with Gary Williams, the Maryland coach, and sure enough, we run into Knight. And Todd, did you ever meet Bob Murray, who did Bob's clinics for years?
Yes.
I don't know if you did.
Yep, I did.
But yeah, so Bob was with Bob Murray, and they stop, and Bob Knight starts speaking to me like we last spoke an hour ago. How you doing? Hey, I heard you had a son. How's that going? And we talked, very cordially for several minutes. And when they walked away, Gary Williams looked at me and said, after all the things he said about you, why would you speak to him? And I said, because he built my house. And I've always, not only did he build my house, he helped build my career.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like Angelo Pizzo who with Hoosiers. I mean, that was their first movie, and it was just a smash success, and it allowed them to make the other movies he talked about. But yeah, it's just crazy the love of the sport in this state. But timing was great as well. But man, it would not have been fair to the rest of the world had you not been able to do what the rest of your body of work, because it's just it's the best-selling author of all time when it comes to sports. So
that was a very humble way to tell me what a stupid question I asked. Saying I just have the two most famous and best-selling sports books of all time.
No, it was actually a very good question, because I am introduced in different ways depending on the circumstance. It's a good question, and the answer in terms of Indiana is you bet Season on the Brink comes up first.
I'll never refer to you any differently other than the best-selling.
I do like that description, actually.
I do too.
I guarantee it. I promise you. John, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join us. I know you're busy, even though we're in this time, but you've got plenty to do, like you said. But it has been an absolute thrill for us, both of us. We've both talked about this, looking forward to it, and just wish you the absolute best. Hope you guys stay safe up there in New York. I know it stinks for all of us, but man, I know it's tough for you guys up there and all the people up there, and we're all thinking of them, and hope we do get through all this, because at the end of the day, it's all about us and the world. So, but man, I'm just excited. I wish this day doesn't end. It's going all day, Todd.
Yep. No, this is
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And by the way, Todd, I should have mentioned, you asked about ex-Indiana players interviewing me. Of course, I've been on with Dan Dockich about 1 million times. Dockich will never forgive me for forgetting that.
Yeah. I was. I know for a fact that would, you'd probably been called about noon today. You would have been on his show.
Noon? Are you kidding? Probably by 10 a.m.
Yeah, no, I know. Danny was he was obviously an assistant the whole time I was there, and obviously a great one for us. So, I've told this story before. I'll tell it real quick. I know you guys got to go, but Dan was a grad assistant the year I was there in '86. He graduated the year before, and he and I hung out a lot together. And we came up with this brilliant diet plan, because we were both trying to lose weight. And we went and had lunch every day at a Chinese all-you-can-eat buffet. So an Indiana grad and a Duke grad combined, and that's what we came up with. That's what you came up with? Are you sure you weren't trying to lose hair? Because Danny was very successful at losing his hair.
Danny's done better at losing hair than I have, that's for sure. I will say that much.
I wouldn't say it if I didn't love him.
He's completely bald. He shaved himself bald the other day. Did you see that? He posted it online.
He told me he was going to do that. I was on the show when Backroads to March came out, and he mentioned me off air that he was getting ready to do that, and probably a good move, actually.
I mean,
might as well embrace it, right?
It would take about 8 seconds. I mean, how long did that take?
Well,
I'm not going any farther, because he'll drive from Indiana to my house to get me if we go on much longer.
Oh, he's a great one, John. I can't thank you enough, man. Thank you so much. You have really made our week, and it's been a thrill. And hopefully, we'll get to do it again someday.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care. Stay safe.
Great, John Feinstein. Go to Amazon.com. Make sure you get his latest book, The Backroads to March. Just his stuff is just it's riveting, man. It took me 3 months, probably when I was 20 years old. It had probably taken 3 years to read the previous book I'd read. It took me like a day to read A Season on the Brink.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing when you hear him say he was a 28-year-old kid, I mean, Coach Knight is, I almost said Knight. Coach Knight is, he's just different in a lot of ways. How does he allow access to a 28-year-old kid? I mean, if
a writer who he doesn't know.
You saw how he treated, wasn't it Jeremy Schaap?
Oh yeah.
Where he treated somebody where he respected their dad, but then he just didn't treat him very well. He just generally wouldn't do that for a young kid like that.
Yeah, well, he gave the same to Nick Nolte, but we got to jump into a real quick break. Come back. Indiana Sports Beat, Coyle Leary coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Back with more right after this.
Sonny, thank you for the facts from A to Z. My life was torn.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary, coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Go to thehoosier.com, get signed up. Great coverage, recruiting, and everything else that's going on with the Hoosiers right now. Taylor Lehman's going to join us a little later. We'll talk about all of that and see what's happening. We were talking a little bit earlier, Louisville getting hit and what they deserve and this and that. And it's going to play into what they do to these other schools. I mean, LSU, what's LSU thinking? What's Kansas thinking? Kansas isn't worried about it, I promise you. Big Bill Self's a baller. He's not concerned. and I promise you another thing Louisville will do this time. They will vigorously fight this. That's what Pitino told them to do the first time, and they didn't do it. They self-imposed, and then they got nailed. And so we'll see. But you hit on a point. The NCAA is not going to punish at the same time Louisville, LSU, Arizona, Kansas, North Carolina State. They're not going to take all these teams out of the tournament, high-profile teams, at the same time. I just don't see it happening.
And I'll tell you, like, I don't care whether Kansas is any good or Louisville's any good or LSU or Arizona or any of them. Like, I don't have any reason to say this other than I think it would be best for college basketball in the future. Is I think that they should just come out with the rules from here forward, especially since they're doing the new name, image, likeness compensation issue, and they're going to have a new transfer issue, portal and system for that. I think they should just come out with some very strict rules on how it should be, and not base anything off the past, and just move forward. Like, you know what? Let's. Why are we trying to punish? If you punish Louisville right now, you're punishing a coach, an athletic director, and a president of the university, and every player that's on that team for stuff that happened before they got there. And that part of it, I just don't agree with. Like, I don't agree with punishing the coaches. I think is the best way that you can do this. Coaches are ultimately responsible, and they're the leaders. They're responsible for what goes on within their program. And then even higher than that, the athletic director has to hire someone he trusts because he's responsible for what that guy does. But ultimately, that coach is responsible for making sure his program is run correctly or not. Even if just saying, hey, I didn't know this was going on, that's not saying you're innocent. That's even worse, in my opinion, because you don't know what's going on within your program. And so, holding the coaches who are paid the biggest salaries in all this, I mean, I think we would all agree, or it's probably the case, that every one of the coaches we're talking about makes more money than the athletic director and probably the president of the university. And the guys that are paid the most money are held accountable and responsible for how their programs are run.
Absolutely. I agree with that so much. The only mitigating thing for Louisville is I think they're seen with a pattern of behavior, a pattern of this behavior. It just it's like, okay, wow, it's happening. It's happening again. That's the issue. None
of the people that were involved in that are there.
I get it. But I get it. It's going to be
This is why I think, and this is why I don't think the university should be held accountable right now. I truly believe Rick Pitino should be held accountable. Like, I don't.
I'm sure a lot of people think that too.
I don't think he should be allowed to go coach at Iona. I don't understand why that's okay, because he was ultimately in charge of his program when he was there.
Well, here's the funny thing too. To me, the biggest culprit to me was Adidas in this. They still have a nice big fat relationship with Louisville, paying them along, and nobody's saying a thing about that. But this all started because of Adidas, because of them doing this. But yet, hey, man, they're paying us big money, so let's rock that boat.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so
they brought this to Pitino. I mean, they brought it to Louisville.
In the scheme, this is kind of what's brought up. But I mean, is Louisville breaking the law by doing what they're doing?
Well, they're breaking NCAA rules, not laws.
Rules. That's my point. They're breaking the rules, but they're not breaking the laws.
That's a lot of people have said that. A lot of people have said that the FBI just really went out and created this crap because what are they doing? They're making stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, when it came to that part in the scheme and all that, I mean, yeah, that was. I mean, they were, whether you think it's entrapment or setting people up or whatever, that's one thing. But I mean, when you look at what they're doing to prosecute. I mean, I don't think that you could go prosecute Rick Pitino for what he did. I don't necessarily know that he broke the law. He broke the NCAA rules, so the NCAA should sanction him to not be allowed to be an NCAA coach. That would hurt his pocket and hurt his livelihood more than anything. That's what they should be trying to accomplish in order to keep people to follow the rules.
And that may be the easiest to do because you talk about a pattern of behavior. Well, Louisville was on probation because he failed to monitor the program.
Right.
So they're already in that situation. But yeah, we'll see.
The coach is who's responsible for that, not necessarily, especially when the university cleans house. Like
I get it. It's going to be.
I'm no.
Here's the
advocate.
thing. I don't think you're going to be wrong if it happens, but if it does happen, there's going to be a lot of people that are really not happy about that. I mean, around the other country. And then again, though, what does that say to LSU, Arizona, Kansas, all those schools? They're going to be going, nope, no way, man. There's no way you can do anything to us. So we weren't on probation.
Yeah, but I mean, one thing that we have seen, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they impose something on one school, they're not necessarily going to follow that same pattern at another school. And they don't have to. We've talked about this at length. They don't have to explain why they gave a certain ruling on a certain school and what it is and why it doesn't follow a pattern. Like they'll go all willy-nilly if they have to.
You got, oh boy, I hate when they go willy-nilly.
We all hate willy-nilly.
Hey, we got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. We're back with Taylor Lehman right after this. Stay tuned.
I'm gonna take my chances on every day. Left to right.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, it's Michael Lewis, former Indiana University player and current UCLA assistant basketball coach, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle Leary coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios here on this Wednesday. Powered by Rivals. Go to thehoosier.com. Get signed up for great coverage. Speaking of that, Taylor Lehman from thehoosier.com joins us now. Taylor, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Jim?
Great. We haven't talked about this yet, Todd, but Devontae Green signed with Rock Nation, entered the NBA draft. It's the same representation as his brother Danny. So no surprise, I guess, really, but I was a little surprised that we just now seeing this, Taylor.
Yeah. I agree. I think I definitely think when you're signing with an agency like that, and given the position Devontae Green's in, I think maybe there was some time that needed to be, or some discussions that needed to take place, and then that took some time. When you're signing with Rock Nation, I don't know if Rock Nation just wants to pick up anybody. I think it takes a little bit for them specifically, but no, I mean it makes sense. Like you said, it's not really much of a surprise, especially with his brother already being represented by them. But my stance on Devontae Green in the NBA is that he's going to get a chance because he can shoot the ball and he can score. So it makes sense. It seems like a perfect marriage, and I guess we'll see what kind of opportunities are afforded him.
I guess it's funny. Like I saw a lot of Indiana fans, or I should say the Indiana fans, commenting on that in a negative way, like what a joke, and that doesn't make any sense, and good luck with that, and things like that. And I'm like, I don't understand the bitterness involved with that. I mean, maybe Devontae didn't quite, have as consistent a senior year or career as you would want. But if you really analyze his game, he has a better chance at being a good NBA player than he did a good college player. I mean, his game fits more in the NBA, and you're exactly right. I mean, you take a guy like him and let him get hot in an NBA game. I mean, I can easily see him, if he gets his mind right and he does things, or not that it's not, but if he follows what they tell him to do, he's got the capability to score the basketball, which, is more than half the battle. And I think he's got a better chance of having a really good NBA career than he did, in college. I don't think it's a joke at all. I get it completely.
I agree, Todd. I think you get Devontae in a space where, it can definitely be, he can focus on what he does best, which is shooting. And he's in an environment where he feels most comfortable doing that. I think, just where everything's about basketball at that point, when you're playing professionally, I can really see Devontae kind of thriving in an environment like that, where there aren't so many other things that are around just playing basketball. It's just basketball.
Yeah, there's so much going on with all that, and that's what I was thinking. It's a different environment for him, so I wish him the best of luck. But you're right, Todd. It's like, man, let it go. Let's support those guys.
Well, and here's
to see that.
You and I talk about this all the time, Jim. When it gets to the jump from, we talk about it with recruits, the jump from high school basketball to college basketball. I mean, I don't want to say it's a totally different game, but it's just so much bigger and faster and more physical, and it's a different looking game, the college game, than a high school game. Well, that jump is just as big, believe it or not. That jump is just as big from college basketball to the NBA. And I know they're both basketball, and I understand that, but the rules and the size of the players and the way the game is officiated and all that is there's so many differences in it that it's almost a different skill set. I know you have to have some of the same skills, and I get that. But athletic ability and then the ability to straight up shoot the ball give you an opportunity to be able to play in a situation like that. And it's a different game than college. And I say it all the time. Some players' games are built for college. They're going to be a better college player than they're ever going to be in the pros. And some players are built. I mean, Scottie Pippen is an example, and Dennis Rodman is an example. Their games are built for the NBA type play, not for college basketball. And it's just, it's just the way that it is. And I would not be shocked at all to see Devontae have a good NBA career.
As far as football news, Taylor, right now, I guess the biggest news is actually Indiana losing a commitment, which that's going to happen. You hate to see that, but it happens from time to time. But they've still doing a good job making up for that. But it's a slow time right now during the recruiting, which had not been the case up till now.
Yeah. I was told that Indiana isn't necessarily upset by the flip. I think he was somebody who joined really early. He was really encouraged by Mark Hagan, David Ballou, and now neither of those guys are in Bloomington anymore. So it kind of made sense that maybe this would eventually happen. And I think it was definitely driven on his side of things. It wasn't necessarily Indiana not trying to contact him or any means by that or by any means, but I think Rodney McGraw just kind of, I don't, this isn't meant to be a slight on Indiana, but a lot of these guys are trying to get to places where they have the most guaranteed shot to get to the NFL. And that's what I'm always told by these high school recruits when they're looking at top Power 5 programs. And when he committed to Indiana, he saw a path through David Ballou, Matt Ray, Mark Hagan, Tom Allen, that, you know, he could get to the NFL. He could get on the field early. And they're drafting guys into the NFL now. We've talked about the streak before. But when Penn State comes knocking on your door after all the staffing changes that have happened in Indiana, you know, it just kind of seemed natural there. And, but you know, the thing is, Indiana has a ton of options at defensive end still in this class. So, and options that are just as good, if not better, than Rodney McGraw could have ended up being. But, yeah, I think when it comes to the flip, and I've talked about this a little bit too on our site. I think when anybody commits as early as he did, it doesn't matter if it's Ohio State, if it's, you know, I don't know, Alabama. Like, there are bound to be flipped commitments, and when you're committing in January, more than a year before you're, you know, scheduled to sign, I think there's too many things change, and things are bound to, you know, affect the way that they view every program in the country. So not a huge surprise, but also not a lot of panic when it comes to this recruiting class either.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, as we go forward into the fall, now we just have to worry about having a football season. It's, you know, every day it's weird because you'll see one school announce, we're not going to be doing this. And then there's another school that says we're going to be doing this. So it's not going to be the same everywhere, I don't think. So it's going to be a weird deal. I don't think we even know. Everybody can plan for it, but we don't know whether it's going to happen. But I think that the plan is definitely that there's going to be a football season and relatively on time, but I don't know that. But I think that's what everybody's plan is.
Jim, I think one of the things with the football season that is to the benefit of everyone is, you know, the kind of December, I'll say fluff time that they've got before bowl season starts. I mean, they've got a 3 week period or almost a 4 week period where they could shove back the beginning of the season a little bit and not even affect bowl season. And even if they had to move bowl season back, that's not the end of the world. And so I think the football season has the biggest fluff time. College football has the biggest fluff time in order to be able to move things back a little bit and not really affect, you know, the end result of it. And I think it's going to be, you know, mid to late June before we have kind of a definite yes or no football season is going to start on time. And I mean NFL and college football. And so, I mean, I think we're still a little bit over a month away before we really know the facts on that.
Right. I agree, Todd. And I think, you know, once we get to determine, you know, whether college football, whether the NCAA even wants to move back the football season, you know, Tom Allen kind of talked about there being a 6 week period where the Big Ten coaches agreed that they would like to be able to practice 6 weeks ahead of the first game. So, you know, if you're I know the Indiana reopening plan that's scheduled to kind of reopen everything on July 4th. And if that's the case, then that's roughly 8 weeks before the first game of the season. So, you know, there's some room to work with here. And nobody really, like you said, and like Jim said, nobody really even knows kind of what the status of this whole outbreak is going to be, you know, by July 4th. Like we don't really know exactly. So, you know, if it needs to be pushed back, I'm sure the NCAA will try to figure something out, but there's a lot that you have to work with in that regard. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. But I just know that right now in Indiana's case, Tom Allen and his staff they're all preparing as if there's going to be a season that starts on September 4th until they get word that it's going to get pushed back or there's not going to be a season at all. And there are still so many questions to be answered, like Jim proposed. You know, you have some states that are hit worse than others. But then, you know, do you allow those states to start practicing and things like that? There's just so many things to work through here that are just completely unprecedented.
What else are you working on now, Taylor? I know, like I said, it's gotten slowed down finally a little bit. It was a big, just a rush of offers and commitments and going on, and got a little breathing room right now. But I know you're always working on something.
Yeah. Right now, I'm actually right as I joined the show. I was writing about the guys that Aaron Wellman has added to his staff. It's a pretty impressive group of guys, fairly young. I was surprised by how young they were, and but I know they've been working around the clock. He's talked about it before. 10 to 12 hours a week just shooting videos alone for all the players that are at their homes, and so um, and then also taking a look, I wrote a paving the way piece for about the 2011 class for football. I'm going to do one about the 2012 class here coming up pretty soon. But we're also talking here pretty soon to Kevin Peoples and Jovan Swan as well. So we'll see kind of what went into the decision making process of Jovan Swan's move to Indiana. Obviously, it's probably that he wanted to be closer to home for his last year, but we'll be able to talk to him and kind of introduce him.
Well, make sure you follow Taylor on Twitter, but also on the Hoosier.com for complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers. Taylor, sir, appreciate you, brother. Hope you're having a good day and the rest of the good week.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Hope you guys are doing well.
See you, brother.
You betcha. Taylor Lehman joined us from the Hoosier.com. Make sure you check him out there, as I said. Man, there's so much stuff that didn't talk about today, that I wanted to yet. Worth the wait. The documentary yesterday.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see it until late. I didn't even get to see it at 5 when it went off. But, man, it was still cool. I mean, just all that stuff that went in. The guys that were the foundation for that team, those club guys that started in the 60s. I didn't realize how far back it started.
I didn't either.
I mean, golly. And the fight to get that to become a varsity sport, it was just amazing. Think about
the the decision for Jerry Yeagley to stay at Indiana University when he had that opportunity to go professional and become a coach. Obviously, I'm guessing the money had to be a lot bigger to go do that, and his chooses to stay at Indiana. And think about that, in watching the documentary, when they got to the point where they were told if they qualified for the NCAAs or were invited by the NCAAs to participate, they would get to go, and then they got invited, and then the school said, no, you can't go. Well, you talk about wanting to do some bad stuff right there. I mean, I was picturing egging his house and all kinds of stuff they wanted to do. But, you think about that athletic director. I mean, that had to be the athletic director that hired Coach Knight also, because based on the time frame of it, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff with that I learned and it was very interesting. I enjoyed the entire thing.
Oh, it was. It was great. It was great. He won 6 national championships, lost 6. I mean, lost 3. Could have won 9, like you said.
Crazy. It is nuts. And I was surprised that there wasn't more about Todd Yeagley. I mean, it's really an awesome story. I think that one of the coolest parts of the whole story is the fact that it's continuing on and with the same last name and the same principles and the same. And
he's going nowhere anytime soon. So let's say he's got another 15 years. I mean, minimum, which probably longer than that. But we will be looking at a possible 60, 70-year run of the same family being involved in Indiana soccer in a sport. That's not comprehensible.
If you go from the time when he got there in 63 or whatever,
that's true.
We're 2 years away from being at 60.
My gosh.
They could go 75 plus years of a Yeagley being in charge of the soccer program and the success that it's had. I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible story. It really is. I love the story. I love the documentary. I thought they did a great job. I would have watched it for 2 more hours if they would have included a lot more stuff about, Todd and the way that they're continuing on with what they built.
Oh yeah, there's so much more. And I just continue to go. I like to go back and watch The Last Dance. Horace is getting it. They're handing it to him right now, aren't they?
Hey, it is what it is. I mean, that whole situation is interesting. I mean, when you look at that. So is this a Bulls documentary or is this a Michael Jordan documentary?
It's supposed to be a Michael Jordan.
It's supposed to be Michael Jordan, and it's a lot. I mean, there's an awful lot of Jerry Krause involved in this thing for it to be a Jordan documentary.
Yeah, well, they just like to crack them. I watched again last night when he was smoking a cigar when you talked about going to stunt your growth.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is fun to watch. Obviously, given our current situation, it's more fun to watch, and we really look forward to it. But I don't know. I would prefer it to be more about Michael Jordan and him and his relationship to the team. But it's cool. It's fun to watch.
Tim hit the text line up, says, hey, guys, Jim and Todd from Bulldog Country. He said, earlier we were talking about NASCAR. I said, come on, Todd, you'll be talking about NASCAR next week.
I will not. Will not.
So, and he also says, how can a coach monitor his players 24/7? Yeah, I mean, there's
it's the kids you recruit. I honestly, yes, you can do that. You can do that based on what was the quote?
Jackson Heights, baby, the Jackson Heights way.
Hang on a minute. Think about something. I wrote this down yesterday. You know me. I don't take notes very often. But when we had Todd Yeagley on yesterday, he made a quote and he said, "We don't just recruit talent, we recruit the right talent." And that doesn't just mean the good players. That means the guys who are going to fit in and do the right thing and act the right way. And yes, you shouldn't have to watch your players 24 hours a day. And I'm not saying they're going to be choir boys. Believe me, we weren't choir boys. But we also
know where to not be choir boys.
We didn't do real stupid stuff.
Knowing when not to be a choir boy, when and where.
You shouldn't have if you've got the right kids, you shouldn't have to watch them 24 hours a day.
Ryan from Michigan says, hope all has been going well in terms of sports. I heard that Taiwanese baseball is starting back up soon, if not has already. Well, no, but let's talk about some Korean baseball.
Who wrote that?
That was from Ryan up in Michigan.
Ryan, Taiwanese baseball. Like, come on. That's your text. You should be embarrassed typing that on a text to come in. Come on, man.
Yeah, Korean baseball. The other night I sent out texting. I'm like, who else is up? This is like 2 a.m. I'm like, who else is up watching Korean baseball?
I hope nobody replied to you.
Oh, there were people. There were plenty of people up watching. That's all that there was. It's crazy. It is embarrassing. That's all we had. And so there's that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, Korean baseball, what the heck? You got to do something. But
hey, in honor of John Feinstein today, I will tell you, you know what? Read a book.
Exactly.
Read a book, bud.
That's the greatest thing ever. Speaking of John Feinstein, make sure you go to Amazon.com and you can get his latest book, The Back Roads to March. Another great story in college basketball.
If you haven't read A Good Walk Spoiled, I highly recommend it.
If you haven't read A Season on the Brink, no, I'm kidding. Who hasn't read that?
Yeah.
Crazy. But great show, man, as always, man. It was awesome. Can't wait to do it again tomorrow, guys. I hope you all go out and have a great day. It's not going to be it's not too bad outside.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful outside right now.
Just got to get the temperature up. But we'll be back to do it all again tomorrow. Make sure you have a great day. And for Todd and Jake, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.